بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
So let me ask you, man, because I don't adhere to any formally any school of thought. I don't know why I say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before I say Fatiha. I have no idea. I don't know why I do the things that I do. I just do them. So you follow Maliki. That means that you follow this school of thought, and anything that you have questions about, and when it comes to Islamic jurisprudence, when it comes to how you pray, when it comes to how you fast, and so on, you get it from this school of thought.
That's,
Do you
that's
think
kind of like my mindset. That's how I'm trained to think.
Yeah. Do you think it's okay? My style where it's like, I'll take a little bit of Shafi'i here, not knowing. I'll take a little bit of Maliki here, not knowing, and so on.
Yeah, so the scholars of Usul al-Fiqh, which is like the theory of Islamic law or jurisprudence, they speak about this. What is the layman required to do? Does the layman even have a madhab, right? And they came with, they actually have a disagreement on this, right? Some said that the laymen don't have a madhab, and some said actually that the layman should generally like know a madhab that they're following and only take from scholars who know that madhab. Nonetheless, they are not allowed to do is to try to figure it out for themselves, right? So once you've made a decision that you don't want to study, you just want to be an average Muslim, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. However, you cannot act like a scholar now, right? What should the layman do? The layman, the ijtihad that they do is that they must seek out the one who is accessible to them, who is the most knowledgeable, who they also view to be the most pious as well, okay? So somebody that they would be comfortable going in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that this is the one who I learned from. Once you ask that person and they give you an answer, khalas, right? That's what you go with, and you're fine. You're not liable for anything. I think, however, in the age of the information age, right, where it's so easy to connect with different people, there's so much information out there, and people are much more educated than they used to be. I think that to kind of mitigate a lot of confusion that's happening due to information being more accessible than ever and due to education being widespread, I personally believe, and I asked some of my teachers this and they agree with this, so I'm not just saying this for myself, that I think to mitigate this, I think it is good to encourage the laymen to adopt the madhab. Okay? I'm not saying that they should. I'm not saying that they have to. I'm saying it's an encouragement, like somebody who wants to know more, somebody who's being exposed to so many different opinions, right? To kind of give them some clarity, some, a framework of thinking. I would say that it is better that they adopt a school of thought so that they have a way to organize their thoughts and organize the way that they process information, that they have a set group of scholars who follow this madhab, that they ask, and the answers that they're getting, because you're going to also want to know the reasoning why, right? So that you get reasoning that's consistent. So you have consistency in the law that you're following. I think this is better for people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Why do you think that it's better for people?
I think that it's better because it, like I said, in the information age where we have access to so much.
But why is it better for you to follow one school of thought than to follow all?
Oh, because otherwise then you have inconsistent law. So based on what are you going to pick this position over that position on any?
Based off what's easier.
Because these rulings, right?
Like, what if I want to do what's easier? For example,
a madhab is not just a group of rulings and that's it. No, the madhab, right,
school of thought,
considered to be a complete philosophy on how to view not just the religious sources, but even how to view things in the world as well. So each madhab has a take on everything that has to do with how we're going to practice the religion. So even, for example, in language, right, when you study the Arabic language, this should be something that unites everyone, right? But when you go like very deep, right, you'll see that scholars of each madhab, they have their own their own thoughts on linguistic theory, on theory of language. They even have their own theories on how to view logic, and how to view mantiq, how to view philosophy, right? On how you're doing tafsir, on how you're explaining hadith, on all of these things, right? So based on what reason would you take this opinion over that opinion? Because what you're going to do is you're going to have inconsistency in the way that you are applying Islam, right? So this is if you're actively doing this, I would say that this is wrong. Actively trying to always look for the easy way out, right? This would not be correct.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, let's say, for example, that blood gets on you before you're trying to make wudu. Some say that your wudu is the wash that you do before prayer. Some would say this doesn't apply anymore. You have to do your wudu again. Others would say you still have your wudu. But on another question, like whether to say Bismillah before Fatiha or not, these seem so separate. it seems like one I could take from and the other one I can't.
Yeah,
not take.
however, the issue is, so one of the things is, right, all of the chapters, they connect on a fundamental level. They all interconnect. The more that you study, the more that you'll see this. So you want me to get like technical?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Maliki Madhhab, right, the type of water that you're allowed to use for wudu, there's different ways to classify water. One of the ways to classify water is based off of if the water is drinkable or not. The vast majority of the Malikis, they say it doesn't matter if the water is drinkable or not. So long as it's pure water, you may use it to wash off najasa. So this one applies directly to washing off that which is filth. Anything that is filth that is on your body, you must wash it. So, like for example, when you go to the bathroom, if any of that gets on you, right, this has to be washed off. Now, what kind of water must you use? This minority opinion in the madhhab, it says that water which is suitable for drinking, you may not use, because this kind of water is akin to food, and you're not allowed to use food to wash yourself off. Now, where did he get this concept from, right? So this is narration from a scholar named Ibn Tin. Do you know where he built this ruling based off of? In one of the famous books of the madhab called Mukhtasar Khalil, Al-Mawahib al-Jalil, which is the commentary of Hattab. So he has this conversation here, and he says that this is built upon an issue in the chapter on riba. Where is this coming from, right? So there's a type of riba where if you trade things in unequal quantities, this is not allowed. So for example, two different types of dates in unequal quantities, this is not allowed. Some things riba applies to, all right, and some things it doesn't.
What's riba?
Riba is inequity in the transaction.
So, for example, if I give you a water bottle and you give me a pencil, would that be?
No. So for the example that we're saying here is, let's say I give you 3 dates and you give me 5. This is not permissible. Right? This is from a clear hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So most people understand riba to be interest only. It's actually much more deep than that. There's a type of riba that deals with specific items. Some of the scholars, they said that you cannot have unequal amounts of water traded for each other. Why? Because water is something which is considered from the food items that you cannot have this in. So based off of that, they brought this back into tahara, and they built another ruling based off of that. So even though this is not the famous position, this is a very minority opinion, but it just goes to show how, like, the type of thinking that's happening here. That they're always thinking everything is a full package from beginning to end. Even, for example, right, when you make sujood, right, what is considered to be sujood? Prostration on the ground. Right? The definition of sujood, prostration in the prayer, is, they say, tamkinul jabhati min al-ard. It is to firmly place the forehead on the ground. Okay, so there's a long conversation on this, right? Like, what is considered to be the ground? By the ground, do they mean the earth? Right. So if that's what we mean, then if that's what we mean, then on the earth or anything that is connected to the earth. Okay, so now if we're going down this train of thought, if I'm praying on an airplane and I'm making sujood on the ground of the airplane, am I connected to the ground or not? How do I know the answer to this? We go to the chapter on buying and selling, where in that same book, Mukhtasar Khalil, he says, وَيَجُوزُ بَيْعَ هَوَى عَلَى هَوَى, that is allowed to sell and to buy airspace over airspace, meaning that, can I buy the 4th floor of a building before it's even created? When I do that, what am I actually buying? I'm buying airspace. Is that allowed? And so this is built on, is airspace something which is considered established? So if it's established, then the airplane is on top of the airspace, which is on top of the ground. Or is it something that moves? Is it something that is not established? Right? So like, this is now bringing like a level of like philosophy into the
Well, what's the answer? Now you got saying.
Well, this is why you have both opinions on praying on the airplane are very strong.
Which is?
Some scholars say that it's an invalid prayer, and some say that it is. And they're both strong opinions. So I'm not saying this to say don't pray on the airplane, right? But this is to show you the level of thought that's going on, right? And trying to keep the law consistent behind the scenes. Like, this is kind of where we're pulling up the hood to see what's under.
Wow.
To see how everything is working together, right? So things, they seem like they're easy. Yes, no, but there are principles. There are things which are at a much higher level, at a philosophical level, that are being taken into consideration from A to Z.
I see.
Now, what some say is that what you can do, right, if you're going to take a position of another madhab on an issue for whatever reason, it should be done with a set of principles, right? From them is that when you take a position from another madhab, you should take the things which directly relate to that opinion. So I'm not saying that it's like totally haram to do this. Like, there is precedent for doing it. However, it's not something that should be, I'm saying this to say this is not something that should be taken lightly.
It's not something that should be promoted, especially too, right?
So this is like when you promote it on every small thing. This is like, they say it's tamir of the deen. It is to make the deen like a light-hearted thing that is like a toy that you're playing with,
I see.
There
What
is
would your
some level of hardship that should be taken, right? Of course, now when the hardship becomes too hard, right, the deen takes that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way for us to get into is like your Maliki focus. So let's focus on Maliki and tell us a little bit about the school of thought.
So the way that the Maliki madhab works, right? They have actually a debate. Is Imam Malik the founder of the school, or did he just become the representative of the school? So meaning that there was an understanding, a methodology that was already there before Imam Malik was in. Meaning that you had the madhab of the people of Medina. But the most distinguishing factor, the Maliki madhab, is as goes. Every madhab will have its own takes, but there will be like one or two things that really distinguishes it from other madhab. The distinguishing factor of the Maliki madhab is that the Prophet ﷺ, he last lived in Medina, right?
Yeah.
And this is the place where the Sahaba learned from the Prophet ﷺ. And the students of the Sahaba and the offspring of the Sahaba, they were in Medina. Even Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, in his khilafah, he did not allow the fuqaha, the scholars of law, to leave Medina. He needed them around him. So he had a fiqh that remained in Medina. And so the way that the Medinans viewed things is that if something is the generally accepted practice in Medina, then this is the sunnah. All right. So
give an example. What do you mean by that?
for example, the way that you pray. Is the way that you pray something that you should take mainly from hadith, or is it something that's being practiced? Right. So if you're in Medina, for example, there's different hadiths on how to say the adhan. Which one do we go with? The Medinans will say the adhan, the Prophet ﷺ last lived in Medina. And the adhan that we're doing is the adhan that our fathers were on. And it's the adhan that they learned from the Sahaba, that they learned directly from the Prophet ﷺ. So it's as if the practice of the people of Medina is mass transmitted hadith.
It's hadith lived on scale.
Exactly. So it's the living practice of Medina. And so because you have a concept in hadith where hadiths can abrogate. So something might have been the ruling at one point of Islam and might have been a different ruling later due to different aspects. So one of the ways that the Malikis would determine is they would corroborate the hadiths with the practice of the people of Medina, which they consider to be a higher source than a single hadith with a single chain. And this is why the teacher Imam Malik, he said, "Alfun an alf ahabu ilayya min wahid an wahid." That 1,000 taking from 1,000 is more beloved to me than one taking from one.
What do you mean by that? What does he
Meaning
mean?
that we're all here living in Medina. All of us learned the adhan. All of us learned how to pray from our fathers. Where did they learn it from? Their fathers. Who are who? The Sahaba. Who learned it from who? The Prophet ﷺ. So it's this living practice when you have all of this staying in Medina.
I see. So you're saying that if a hadith comes and goes against, like if a hadith is explaining prayer, but it is contradicting the way that the people of Medina prayed at that specific time, then Imam Malik would have gone with the way that the people of Medina prayed.
So a lot of times in the Muwatta, his book of hadith, he actually puts hadiths and he would be asked, why do you place this hadith and your ruling is different? And so he would say, so that an ignorant person like you doesn't think I didn't know the hadith. And he would narrate a hadith and he would say, wal amru andana, and the way that we act, meaning in Medina, is like this. So one of the filters that we do in this methodology is we have the practice of the people of Medina. So you have a fiqh that's understood by the people of Medina. Whenever they agree upon something, this tells us a story. This tells us something. Imam Malik was from the Atba' Tabi'in, like 2 generations out.
2 generations out. Okay.
So he's like right there, right? So he took from, for example, who's Imam Malik's teacher? One of them at least is Nafi'. Who is Nafi'? Nafi' was the student of Ibn Umar, the Sahabi. You see?
Yeah.
This is how close it is. Now, when you have people in Medina, all of them are agreeing on something. Who are taking from people, all of them are from Medina, who are taking from the Sahaba. This tells us that this is the practice that you should go with. Of course, I'm oversimplifying it, and I'm going to have more zeal for the madhab that I resonate with, right? There's back and forth on this. I don't want anybody to think that the other madhabs are weak now because of this. These things are open, like a lot of things are more open than they are closed in Islam. Okay, they'll have their own take on this and how to reconcile and their own responses to this, and it will go back and forth. Now, there's other distinguishing features of the Maliki madhab. One of them is that the Maliki madhab places a lot of emphasis on local customs.
What do you mean? Like,
that
for example, weddings?
No, so like the customs should be taken, and every madhab takes this into consideration. However, the Malikis are very famous for developing this. That the local customs of people need to be taken into account in every ruling that you give. So, for example, what's considered like sunnah clothing? Did the Prophet ﷺ dress in a specific way because he was an Arab in that time?
No.
Or was it because this is something that is meant to be legislative? that we should dress in the exact same way. So what we should understand is that there is a dress code. There's not a dress uniform, but there's a code. So there's things that we cannot expose. However, the customs are left to the people on what that looks like. So, for example, what's considered to be decent and indecent, these kind of things, that is left up to people's local customs. So here's an example, right? The Arabs, they had long hair. So the Prophet ﷺ had long hair. Is this having long hair something that is legislative, or is this something that is part of being an Arab? So, for example, if you're living in an area where having long hair is an attribute of only women and it's something that is foreign to men, right? Somebody should not come and say, this is the sunnah, so I'm going to do it. You see?
So even if the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself had long hair, if your society and culture deems it not correct for a male to have long hair, then you shouldn't have long hair.
Yeah. So, and another example of this, the beard. What is considered a beard? The beard, according to many of the Malikis at least, right, is something that society considers to be a beard. So it doesn't have to be very long, for example. Right? This is another thing that can be dictated by customs. And this is a very Maliki way of looking at things. Another example is the example of having clothing below the ankles. So if the clothing below the ankles is something that is done out of arrogance in that society, then it's something that shouldn't be done. However, if it's not done out of arrogance and that's just how people dress, then this is fine.
Interesting.
So these are all different ways that the Malikiya would look at things. Another interesting aspect of the madhab is that there's a concept called ma jara bihi al-amal, meaning that which has been practiced upon by the scholars. And the source for this is when Imam Malik was asked. So Imam Malik, when the Khalifa went to him, and he said he wanted to take his Muwatta, his book in Hadith, and he wanted to make it the standard for the entire Ummah and to rule based on Imam Malik's fiqh. And from this, one of my teachers, he makes a joke. He says, Imam Malik never made a mistake in his life, except for in this story. Of course, he's joking, right? And it's that Imam Malik, he said, no. He said, don't do it. Because every single area of the Muslim world, they have their scholars and they have their portion and understanding of the Sunnah. And it's not right for us to force them on something else. So respecting the local scholarship.
Even though it's his own opinions that would have been enforced.
Yes, and this is what I mean by true unity. However, you respect the other scholarly bodies. So based on this, there is a doctrine, or there's a theory in the Maliki madhab called ma jara bihi al-amal, meaning that if the scholars of an area, like qualified scholars, they have been acting upon a certain position, it is not right to come and impose another opinion in that area, even if you think it's more correct. And when you do this, you cause a lot of problems, right? So for example, they give the issue that you have the issue of the sheep, which is like, they call it mughalsam. So like the sheep, when you slaughter it, and according to the Malikis, this round thing, I haven't found it in English, or if I did, I forgot it. But it's like this like bubble kind of that comes out of the neck. It should be pushed up, right? When you go to slaughter and you put the sheep's head back, there'll be something that is round that comes out of the neck. The word in English is not coming. Anyway, you have to push it back and slaughter with it over the knife. According to the Malikis, that's how the animal must be slaughtered.
You mean the jugular vein?
No, not just the jugular vein. This is something else.
This is only the Malikis that think this?
I don't know the other madhabs, but there's another position in the madhab that says it's not a requirement. Right? Now, the dominant position, the majority position in the madhab, is the first one that I gave, and the minority one is the other one. Well, in some lands, right, the scholars in those lands, they viewed that this is not a requirement. And they've been on that for many centuries, right? So the scholars, they actually say that if you are, and this is very important, and this is why it's not permissible for the layman to give fatwa. And this is where
the layman to give what?
To give a fatwa, to tell people what's halal and what's haram, and to, because you could really ruin people's lives. So imagine, right, in certain areas, for example, in Tunisia, the ma jara bihi al-amal, this, what the scholars have acted upon, is the position that this is not a condition for the slaughter. Okay, so they actually say in the books of legal rulings, of court rulings, is that if somebody is a visiting scholar, let's say from outside, right, and they tell somebody that this is haram meat now because you slaughtered it in this way, and the person believed them, and that person takes the animal that they slaughtered and they throw it out, which this will cause them financial loss, right? The judge would rule that person has to compensate, financial compensation.
Wow.
You see, because you went into a different place where the people have been acting upon a valid position for a long period of time, okay? And so you cannot just come in and impose your way of doing things. So this idea, and of course every madhab, they have a variation of this, right? But the Maliki madhab, they have their set protocols and positions on how to deal with differences of opinions and how to let people live and how to let people understand the deen locally.
Very cool, man. I didn't know
So
any.
this allows for local scholarship to take into consideration their context. One of the biggest issues that we have is we have people who are taking fatwas from, let's say, another place in the world who don't understand our context, right? And due to that, leads to many issues that is not lost upon anyone. Like, this is why sometimes you read some fatwas and you see that this doesn't make any sense at all. It seems like this guy has no idea what society that we're living in. However,
Yeah.
when you have a madhab and you're not trying to figure things out for yourself, right? The ulama have for many years, like, you're taking the collective wisdom of scholars over a period of over 1,000 years. That wisdom is going to be great. When you take a madhab, you will be taught these things on how to respect local scholarship, on how to take into consideration culture, all of these kind of things. When you take that out, right, you're going to run into the same problems and the same issues that scholars have went into in the past, and you're just going to be reinventing the wheel. And this is why it's important that we have our own, like, American-bred scholarship.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Very important.
You benefit from anywhere in the world, and we should not like traveling to seek ilm. That's something that's very important. It's the way of the scholars of the past for a long period of time, right?
Traveling to seek knowledge.
Traveling to seek knowledge, and they do this after they've sought knowledge from the scholars of their local area first. So you make the most advantage of the people in your local area. Then if you want more, you can go outside. But when you come back, you're not importing, right? You're not importing word for word everything that you learn. Again, the madhab is not just a book of rulings, copy, paste, and that's it. If that was the case, anybody could be a mufti. You just read the book and you apply. No, the madhab is a complete philosophy on how to view life and how to view the religion and how to tie between the two.